When It first aired in 1990 on ABC, the two-part TV miniseries adaptation of Stephen King's 1986 novel was seen by more than 30 million people nationwide. And it was Tim Curry's iconic performance as Pennywise the Dancing Clown that left a lasting impression on the audience and irreparably altered the general public's perception of the normally jovial, cheery image typically attributed to circus clowns. Hi there, I'm your host, Mr. Doyle, and this is a great undertaking. If you're interested in Stephen King, killer clowns, and long-winded run-on sentences delivered by someone who may or may not understand how grammar works, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. This is the third video in the It series in which I will be discussing the 1990 TV adaptation of It. I was only 8 years old when this TV miniseries dropped, and I was a sheltered kid growing up, so I first watched this classic King adaptation a few days ago. I know, I'm shocked too. I had convinced myself that I must have seen it before as I was so familiar with Tim Curry's performance, but turns out his portrayal of Pennywise is just so deeply ingrained in popular culture I had fooled myself into thinking I had actually watched it, but nope. It's wild how one character or one performance can become so deeply embedded into one's mind and into the collective consciousness of society. And it was this show and Curry's performance that took an already fomenting, sinister representation of clowns and ramped it up to a fever pitch. One that in part inspired a nationwide phenomenon and the coining of a name for the fear of clowns that King and Pennywise had helped to escalate. Send in the clowns. Clowns have been around for literal millennia, going all the way back to ancient Egypt, and clown-like characters with similar traits and roles have existed independently of one another in various cultures throughout recorded history. In some societies, they were jesters or fools whose purpose was to entertain. In others, such as Native American and Pueblo cultures, they were part of sacred religious ceremonies and rituals. And in some more modern societies, clowns were used to market cheeseburgers and peddle cheap plastic piece of toys to kids. But no matter their role or what they represented, clowns have been around in one form or another for thousands of years. And while clowns may have already made some folks uncomfortable, it wasn't until recently that clowns became widely feared. And there are perhaps a few specific reasons why clowns began to seem more threatening than jovial right around the time the 1980s and 90s rolled around, leading to the fear of clowns to be deemed a legitimate phobia. The first example being notorious real-life villain John Wayne Gacy. Also known as the Killer Clown, Gacy used to work as a clown for hire, providing entertainment at birthday parties, nursing homes, and the like, under the stage name Pogo the Clown. Gacy was arrested in 1978 and convicted of more than 30 murders, and the photos of Gacy in his clown costume and makeup were largely publicized upon his arrest and conviction. This shocking revelation that a clown could be some truly horrifying monster in disguise certainly didn't do the image and reputation of clowns any favors. 8 years after Gacy's arrest and conviction, King would publish It in 1986, bringing Pennywise into the world. While I can't find any reliable sales figures for It, at this point in King's career, his novels were selling hundreds of thousands of copies in their first year of publication alone, so it's safe to say that It and Pennywise the Clown had found their way into the minds of a great many unsuspecting readers. Just a quick aside, there has been speculation that Pennywise the Clown was in some part inspired by John Wayne Gacy. I haven't found any quotes from King to corroborate this theory, but from what I can tell, any resemblance between the two is surface level at best. Not 2 years after the publication of It, the slapstick horror comedy movie, Killer Clowns from Outer Space would debut in 1988 with aliens disguised as circus clowns running amok and harvesting humans as food. And while the movie is cartoonish and zany, as someone who accidentally stumbled across this movie as a child in the middle of one sleepless night, I assure you the clowns themselves were pretty freaky at the time. The following year, in 1989, Tim Burton's Batman would be released, bringing Jack Nicholson's iconic portrayal of the Joker to the big screen in a far more sinister, larger-than-life way than the Joker had previously been portrayed. I mean, Jack Nicholson does crazy murder clown in a way that even Cesar Romero just didn't quite capture. Then in 1990, with 30 million people tuning in, Tim Curry brought Pennywise to the screen for the first time in the TV miniseries adaptation, taking the archetype of the sinister clown that had already been established over the course of the previous decade and dialing it up to 11. At this point, the audience had already become susceptible to and wary of the stories, portrayals, and actual instances of evil clowns, but Tim Curry's Pennywise brought King's sewer-dwelling troll clown to life, further elevating the fear that already existed and arguably is responsible for leading to that fear becoming a cultural phenomenon and a full-blown phobia, now known as coulrophobia. And the term coulrophobia didn't even exist until the 1990s, further enforcing the idea that King, Curry, and Pennywise were at least in part responsible for the fear of clowns elevating beyond an irrational, emotional response and into the realm of a legitimate, debilitating condition. It's also important to note that beginning in the early 1980s and continuing through the early 2000s, what is known as phantom clown sightings began to pop up all over the United States. In 1981, a group of children in Massachusetts claimed that men dressed as clowns had attempted to lure them into a van. Following this incident, a rash of phantom clown sightings and claims began to spread across the country and even into other countries. While some had dismissed these sightings as a sort of mass hysteria or a phenomenon brought about as a result of the satanic panic, which was of course in full swing during the early 80s, the general public were no longer comfortable being dismissive of evil clowns, or at least evil people dressed as clowns. We even saw a resurgence of this phantom clown phenomenon as recently as 2016. This evil clown sighting renaissance may or may not have had something to do with the resurgence of the evil clown character in popular media. American Horror Story's 4th season Freak Show featured the diabolical Twisty the Clown in 2014 and 2015, and the hype surrounding the upcoming It feature-length film adaptation, which would debut in 2017, was just getting started. The Phantom Clown phenomenon spread like wildfire because the internet, but regardless of why it was happening again or whether or not the 2016 hoax was indeed a hoax, the evil clown has reasserted itself in the collective consciousness with regularity for at least 50 years now, and was likely around long before Tim Curry's Pennywise became the most recognizable representative from this, the most bastardized of circus performers. Final thoughts. The 1990 It TV series has its share of flaws, but it's worth watching for Tim Curry's performance alone. Pennywise is truly an iconic character, and it was Curry's portrayal that arguably caused the evil clown craze to boil over and develop into a full-blown phobia that was cemented in popular culture for decades. Initially, when I heard that Bill Skarsgard had been cast as Pennywise in the 2017 and 2019 feature films, I was admittedly skeptical. I just didn't see how this fresh-faced, good-looking young fellow was right for the role, but I was happy to be proven wrong when Skarsgard took the iconic character and made it his own. And so next week I'll be discussing both chapters 1 and 2 of the feature-length film adaptations of It, which I thoroughly enjoyed. New videos drop on this channel every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so subscribe to the channel to get notifications, please. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Okay, goodbye. Be sure to click like and subscribe to the channel for my continued analysis of all things Stephen King, pretty pleased with blood and guts on top. My name is Mr. Doyle, and this has been a great undertaking.